Hello, Texas Realtors. This is your favorite Texas broker, Edie Leon, ready to go through the residential real estate listing agreement. This is the exclusive right to sell. We are going through every one of the Texas contracts, TAR contracts, and TREC contracts. Today, we're going to focus on the listing agreement. So here we go. Okay. Line by line, but not word for word. First of all, paragraph 1 is where you will be writing the seller's legal names, and you need to confirm who are the existing sellers. Make sure that at the listing appointment, you have all parties who legally own the property. I see a lot of issues with the husband being present and the wife not being present, or maybe a child there, but the parent passed away. There could be a divorce. The wife is there, but the husband is not. So whenever there's a discrepancy and you're confused about who are the legal owners according to what's in the tax rolls. So how you verify who's recorded on the tax roll is your quickest way to confirm legal owners. Then after that, you're going to have discussions on, okay, well, if you're divorced, we might need your divorce decree. If there has been a death in the family or a transfer of ownership, we're going to need additional documentation. So when you are writing a listing agreement, you make sure that the parties involved are the true parties that have the authority to sell the property. You can fill out as much information or all the information that you have below. Then you have your broker's information. So the broker is the brand, right? Local Realty Agency, YZT Realty, whatever it is. You put the name of the broker, and then you can put your name next to it and fill out all of the broker's information along with your information. So make sure you put on there your phone number, your email, but the broker's address. Now, I want to remind all the realtors that you are taking this listing on behalf of your broker. The broker is the one who owns the listings. They own the clients, and they assign you as the broker representative to represent sellers and represent buyers. We go to paragraph 2, which is the legal description of the property. And where do we find legal information? You go back to the tax appraisal district. If it's Dallas County, that's Dallas CAD, Collin County, Collin CAD, etc. And there you will have the legal description. If the property has ever been listed in the MLS, then you can go back to a old MLS sheet and pull up the legal description from that MLS sheet. Next is paragraph B. Its improvements in paragraph C are accessories. So B and C get sometimes confused because the word accessories sound like extras or non-real estate, which they're not necessarily attached to the property, yet they are conveyed with the property. So all improvements and all accessories are sold, conveyed, transferred, however you want to say it, with the sale of the property. These two paragraphs are the big two lawsuit paragraphs because the real estate agents forget to remind the seller, hey, you know these curtains that are not attached, they're loose? Well, they go with your house. Hey, you know that pool equipment that's not attached with your home? They go with your house. So this is the part that I like to stop and have the seller read item by item. Whether it's permanently attached or an accessory, If it's on this list, it is sold with the property. Make sure to review it carefully. And then we have paragraph D, which is exclusions. If you want to keep your curtains, if you want to keep any kind of equipment or security systems, speakers are a big one. There's a lot of technology that people take with them. Well, you can. There's no problem. But it does need to be written in the exclusion, paragraph D. And once it's written in the exclusion, real estate agents make sure that that is also written in your MLS sheet, disclosed to the entire world. Here are the exclusion. And then third safety protection is make sure that it is written in the 1 to 4 contract. So when you receive an offer, look in that exclusions paragraph. And if they didn't write in the exclusion, you're going to counter offer and make sure that the things that the seller told they wanted to not sell would be on there as exclusions. Then we have paragraph E, which is owners association. That's your HOA, your homeowners association. It's pretty simple. It either is part of an HOA or is not part of a mandatory membership association. So real estate agents sometimes forget to get clarity on if it's mandatory homeowners association or not mandatory homeowners association. So this subdivision could be part of a homeowners association that's actually not mandatory. Yet there's a homeowners association, but they're not required to pay. They can voluntarily pay. Then we go to the next page. Here we go. All right. Paragraph number 3, which is the listing price. This is the price that the seller agrees to list the property for after you have given them a comparative market analysis. That would be your CMA. You've done the research and you both agree that this is the right price. When writing this price, make sure that the owner is the one that owns and chooses that price, not you. It's their home, so therefore they need to make the decision, not you make the decision for them. Paragraph 4 are the terms of the listing agreement. So how long will you represent the seller? For how many days, weeks, months, years? There's no specific timeline. Most of us choose a date that makes sense with days on market. So when I run the comparable, if in the market analysis it says average days on market is 90 days to sell a property, and that's average days on market, then I would probably do a 6-month listing. If average days on market is 30 days, you might be fine with a 3 or 4-month listing. If it's a luxury home and the homes take 8 to 10 months to sell, you want to make a 12-month listing. So it's all contingent on what you learned in your CMA. Number 5, broker compensation. Okay, so this is the part that really has changed in our listing agreement in 2025 after the NAR settlement. This is the confusing part. So we have 2 options. I want you to think about paragraph A, paragraph B. Paragraph A is the broker collecting both compensations. So the broker is collecting compensation for the listing agent. The broker is collecting the compensation for the buyer's agent. You're agreeing there at the listing table how much that compensation is, and you're agreeing to share it. So you will take X amount and X amount will be shared with the buyer's agent. So let's take a look at that. Paragraph 5A1, the first option is a percentage or a flat fee, or paragraph B, which would be just a blank slate for you to write something very specific on there. That is the total amount, how much the buyer's agent and listing agent combine. So if it's 6% listing, that's 3 for you, 3 for them. If it's a 4% listing, that's 2 for you, 2 for them. I just want you to remember that paragraph A is the total amount the broker is collecting. Then we go down to paragraph number 2. That is the part you're sharing with the buyer's agent. So if the other broker represents the buyer, then X amount of the sales price or set fee of the sales price or just set fee will be shared. So when you are writing 1 to 4 contract and you are actually, as the listing agent, sharing compensation, you will need to use an agreement between brokers along with your offer. And you will be writing the buyer's agent compensation on page 10 of the contract. So this is option A. Now let's look at option B. So option B is if the broker is not collecting total compensation. The broker is only collecting their fee payable to the listing agent. That's it. So I, Edie, take a listing and the seller is going to pay me 2%, 2%. That is all I'm collecting. I'm not touching the buyer's agent's compensation. I'm not sharing mine with the buyer's agent. The seller has not negotiated or agreed to pay the buyer's agent anything in particular. So what do your offers look like? The 1 to 4 contract, then you will write in paragraph 12 with your offer of the 1 to 4 contract how much the seller will negotiate with the buyer's agent. You, the listing agent, are out of the picture. You've negotiated your fee, you're done. Now, the buyer's agent, along with the offer, is going to negotiate not just the sales price, the terms, the dates. Now, the buyer's agent is also going to be negotiating their compensation that will be paid directly from the seller at closing. So there is no agreement between brokers. This broker is not agreeing to pay this broker anything. The agreement is between the seller and the buyer's agent. The seller's paying the buyer's agent. All right. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. I know it's a lot and it takes a couple of times to go through the deals for you to get comfortable with the option. Option A is the broker collects both sides and shares a percentage to the buyer's agent. Option B is the broker does not collect both. The broker only collects theirs. Okay, let me go. So at the bottom of this page is the authorization to disclose seller paying buyer's expenses. So just remember, everything that you do on behalf of the seller, unless they authorize you to do it, is confidential. So whenever you decide to market something or offer something, you need to have in writing that the seller has authorized you to tell the general public that they will give X amount of money towards buyer's agent compensation or towards buyer's closing costs or towards any whatever amendments or not amendments, any other contributions. Okay, let's go to the next page. Paragraph C, easy, and paragraph D, easy. I just wrap those both up when explaining this to my clients and say, Mr. Seller, my compensation is earned and payable if I actually sell your property, and it is payable at the closing table, and it is earned if I do my job and sell your property. This is paragraph E, which is other compensation. So breach by buyer under a contract, service providers, or other fees. So let's do the first one. So if seller collects earnest money, the sales price or damages by suit, settlement, or otherwise, guess what? Seller will also pay the broker. So if the seller actually sues the buyer, or like for specific performance, and the buyer actually purchased the property, then the seller does owe the broker the compensation. Would be an example of that. Service provider. So this is kind of a disclaimer. If the broker refers the seller or the prospective buyer a service provider like cable company or utility, and broker may receive a fee from the service provider for the referral. Any referral fee broker receives under this paragraph is in addition to any other compensation. So you're just disclosing in case your brokerage has an agreement with any providers for some kind of a referral fee. Next is other fees and reimbursable expenses. So here's a little tip, agents. If you take a very short listing, I would put on here some of a termination fee, marketing fee. Even if you're not taking a short listing, if you're spending a lot of money on marketing or whoever you do your business, and you feel that spending $1,000 on a listing and a seller potentially changing their mind halfway through your agreement would be detrimental to you, then you're going to put on here reimbursable expenses. You can put on there a $500 marketing fee with pictures for any expenses you've had. Next is protection period. Another confusing paragraph. So protection period does not mean that you get to hold the seller hostage and he can't move on, list his property with another broker and sell his property. That's not what that means. So first let's look at paragraph 1, which is how long should a protection period be? What would be fair and reasonable? In my opinion, my humble opinion, 30, 60 days protection period should be fine. In my 20 years of selling real estate, I have yet to see somebody come back 60 days after seeing a property and saying, oh, I want to buy it now. But nevertheless, you never know. So I think 60 days, you could even do 90 days. But what exactly are you protected from? What exactly is the protection period? Let's read paragraph F2. No later than 10 days after the listing ends, broker may send the seller written notice specifying the names of the persons whose attention was called to the property during the listing. And if the seller agrees to sell the property during the protection period to a person named in the notice, then guess what? Or a relative too. I love how it says or relatives. The seller will pay the broker upon the closing of the sale. So are you understanding a little better what this means? Your listing expires June 1st and you put on there a 30-day protection period. First of all, if you don't abide by within 10 days sending written notice the names of the buyers who were interested in your listing, then you've just voided this because you have not given the seller notice. But let's say you do everything right. So the listing expires June 1st. You put a 30-day protection period, so that's till June 30th. Within the first 10 days of the listing expired, send them, John Doe came to see your property, Susie Smith came to see your property. These two buyers potentially could come back and put an offer within the next 30 days. If that does happen, you're protected. If you don't do that, then you're not protected. But the seller can list their home with any other broker. They could sell it to anybody else during that time. That you cannot control. Now, a little tip is buyer rep agreement has a very similar protection period too. Just go back to your buyer's rep agreement, read the protection period, and make sure you understand what that means and how it applies on a buyer's rep. Let's go to the next page. Paragraph G, which is the county. So this is not the county where the home is at. This is the county where your broker gets paid. Paragraph H, escrow authorization. So the seller authorizes and broker may so instruct the closing agent to do what? Collect and disperse the broker's amount. Simple. Paragraph 6 is listing services. You have a couple of boxes to check. You can either check the box that says the seller does authorize the broker to list the property in the multiple listing service, right? The broker MLS. Or paragraph B, the broker will not file the listing with any multiple listing services. So essentially, if you choose paragraph number 2 there, then it's not going to go on the MLS. It's almost like a pocket listing. It's a private listing, or maybe the seller only wants you to market it in Zillow, Trulia, who knows. Just be aware of that. 99% of sellers choose a realtor who can list their homes on the MLS to get maximum exposure. Let's go to the next one. Next page. Here we are, page 5 of 11. And if you are writing your first listing agreement, I hope that you print this out and you are following right along and you are filling it out so you don't miss anything. Paragraph B, listing content. So what does that mean? What are the definitions? Means all photographs, images, videos, etc., etc. Read everything that means. Listing content. Seller grants the broker a non-exclusive, right? Royalty-free license. So you can do what with all those pictures? Anything you want. You can mark them. You can use them in your listing presentations. And you want to do that because you want to show that you are a phenomenal listing agent. All broker listing content is owned by the broker and seller has no right, title, or interest. That's on paragraph 3. Now, let's say your listing terminates and the seller says, can I purchase those pictures from you, the videos, the marketing, whatever? Sure, you have the right to negotiate that in a termination and sell them to the seller. Paragraph 7 is access to the property. Here, the seller is authorizing access to the property, and not just to the broker, but also to their associates, inspectors, appraisers, contractors, any of those trades, they receive access. Obviously, they're going to be supervised either by the buyer's agent or by you, the listing agent, or if the seller says, I will be present, then that works too. You don't just give super key access or codes to any of these providers. Only other licensed agents have access to that super key, along with licensed inspectors and who pay for the super key, licensed appraisers who pay for the super key, and there are a few vendors like photographers that will actually pay for MLS super key access. Scheduling companies, depending on who your brokerage or you use, you're going to put on there the scheduling company. That is an appointment center. We have Showtime. We also use Broker Bay. Either one of those, you can also decide that you want to handle the appointments and coordinate it all yourself when it's a luxury property. Sometimes the sellers prefer that you be on top of all that. Paragraph C is the key box. So what form of key box? What should you use? Well, first of all, the most secure key box is called the Super Key Box. It's a blue box and is electronic, and you have a Super Box app that only licensed realtors or authorized people have access to. So everybody who has access to that key inside the key box has been verified. A second option, and not very secure, would be a combination lock. $20 at Home Depot. That you could use on certain circumstances, like maybe rental properties, vacant properties, with the authorization of the seller. Never put a combo box when the seller thinks it's a secure Supra box. So just have those conversations. Use wisdom. They're hiring you because you are going to protect and take care of their home, which includes access to the property. Paragraph B is liability and indemnification. So this pretty much is holding the broker and their associates harmless if something was to happen. So if somebody falls through the roof, it's not the broker's fault. If somebody trips in the backyard, it's not the broker's fault. Also, seller assumes risk of any loss or damage or injury. Remember, you own this property, they do. You are listing the property, you're not the owner. And sometimes us realtors behave like managers, which we should not be behaving like property manager and coordinating people to come in and out of the house. Be very careful on not acting like you're the owner of the property, because when you act like you're the owner of the property, you're also assuming the risk like the owner. Let's go to the next page. We are all done. Intermediary status and no intermediary status. So you have paragraph 9, 2 options. The confusion about intermediary status is you guys confuse the information about brokerage service intermediary status. So in real estate, we have a couple of options. In intermediary, we have no intermediary, and then we have intermediary with appointments, intermediary with no appointments. The intermediary that they're talking about here in paragraph A is intermediary with appointments. That means that the seller is authorizing other real estate agents in the brokerage that work for the same broker to show and sell the property. So that would look like this, that little triangle in real estate school. So you've got the broker on top. The broker is being authorized to assign Susan over here as the listing agent and assign Johnny over here as the buyer's agent. That is intermediary with appointments. Just remember, the broker appoints two. Intermediary with no appointments, at least in my brokerage, that's not allowed. That would be that there's a broker, there's an agent, and the agent represents both the buyers and the seller. And we all know you cannot represent two people fairly. You cannot fight for the seller to get top dollar and fight for the buyer to get the cheapest price. That's just not possible. That's why we don't do intermediary with no appointments, but we do a lot of intermediary with appointments. That actually is a benefit to the seller because it allows for the entire brokerage, hundreds of agents, to go out there and find a buyer for the seller. Some sellers might choose option B, which is no. I do not want any buyer that is represented from the brokerage to purchase our house, and that's okay. You just have to be able to explain that to them. And if there's any scenario with intermediary, you must disclose it. It's also disclosed in the information about brokerage services, but when the situation arises, you need to stop, disclose it, have everybody write and sign the intermediary agreement. So everybody's on the same page that there is an intermediary status happening with this deal. We go to paragraph 10, which is confidential information during this listing and after. Everything's confidential unless authorized in writing by your client. So let me give you some examples. Edie, we're selling the house because we're getting a divorce. That's confidential. Edie, we're selling the house. My husband lost his job. That's confidential. Edie, we're selling the house And just because we're relocating out of the country, that's confidential. Real estate agents, stop giving personal private information out to the general public or to all other real estate brokers out there. The next one is the broker's authority. And that one leads us into the next page. The broker is authorized to display the listing in the internet. So a seller has to authorize you, right? Paragraph C is the type of financing this property qualifies for. So how do we know what kind of financing it qualifies for? Well, it all depends on the condition of the home. So if the home is not inhabitable or is a disaster, and it's a full rehab, it might only qualify for cash. You might call your lender and say, hey, this house doesn't have a roof. Could you get a loan on this house? And the lender will let you know, no, this home is not going to be secure enough to secure a mortgage. Then there's conventional, VA, FHA. Those are all traditional things. Talk to your lender about that. Then we go paragraph D, which is in accordance with applicable MLS rules and outlined. So you guys go through this and read the rules. There are rules that your MLS, your association, and maybe even your broker has. But for now, these are the top 10 things you have to be familiar with. So take time, pause the video, and you read it. Paragraph 12, seller's representation. So the seller has an obligation too. It's not all about everything we're going to do for the seller. It's also what is the seller agreeing to. And guess what? They're responsible for letting you know if they're delinquent on the loan, if they're not paying their mortgage. They're responsible for ensuring the property is safe. They're responsible for disclosing any pertinent defects and facts. They're responsible for a lot of things, so make sure that you understand what the seller is responsible for too. Let's go to the next page, which is seller's additional promises. So the broker lets the seller know, you need to cooperate with me. You need to facilitate showings and allow me to do marketing. You need to let me do my job. Believe it or not, some clients are difficult and they block showings, yet they complain the house isn't selling, or they don't clean the property, or they don't maintain things, and they blame it all on the realtor. So I love it if you guys just press pause right now. If you're watching this video, I don't want to just spoon feed you the information. This should be a time for you to stop and read every single thing. Paragraph 14 is limitation of liability. So the broker is not responsible or liable for personal injury or loss. This is the part where I let the seller know. Please make sure to put away guns, jewelry, money, things of value, things that can get broken. Your home is going to be open to strangers, to the public. So secure anything on there. Be a danger. A lot we've been seeing medicines being stolen from medicine cabinets, and they can't blame you, because in the listing agreement, if you explain this listing agreement correctly, then you are actually they can't hold you liable. They can try, but if you did a good job, they're not going to be able to win because they signed off on that. Let's go to the next one. Special provisions. What should you write on special provision? Hopefully nothing. For me, the only thing I like to write on special provisions and not act like an attorney, right? That's that section that they warn you don't write on here unless you talk to your broker or an attorney. I write on there, this contract can be terminated by either party with a 24-hour written notice. I write that on there because I want my clients to feel comfortable that either they can fire me or I can fire them. And This agreement, representation agreements, are like a marriage certificate. You can't hold other people hostage. When one party says, I don't want to be married to you, the other party cannot say, well, I'm going to force you to. Well, this is how you should look at this. If a seller says, I don't want to work with you, you do not want to hold them hostage, or a buyer hold them hostage. That's wrong. At the same time, you don't want them out there cheating on you, right? So they have their duties to you, but you have their duties to them. Let's go to paragraph 16, which is default. Mediation, attorney fees. So those three I like to lump up together and just say, Mr. Seller, in the case either one of us default, just know that in real estate, we try and do everything through mediation, not litigation. And we try and resolve things to keep all the attorneys out of it. But in case there are attorneys, just read paragraph 15. So again, pause this video, read this carefully. Don't just assume default is no big deal. Paragraph 19 is addenda and other documents. So any other documents that are part of this listing agreement, information about brokerage service, seller's disclosure, any MUD, PID, HOA information, on-site sewer. There's a lot of addendums on here that you might want to ask the seller at that time. Is there a MUD? Is there a PID? Is there on-site sewer? And then you'll be able to put together all the things that apply, lead-based addendum, all those things. So now we go to paragraph 20, which is agreement of parties. A and B. A just says this listing is the entire agreement. Neither party can just assign this contract. It's binding and it's in effect. Just go through the legalities of this, and then we finish with paragraph 21 that has items A through G. A through G. Here we are, the last page of the listing agreement, and our additional notice. So you can, at the listing agreement, touch on a couple of them just so you make sure that you look like a pro. But you should be giving this to them to review maybe before you show up, so they actually read the entire listing agreement. You definitely don't want to be at a listing agreement reading line by line. You want to give them time to read it, but you want to be able to explain the main bullet points of each paragraph like I've just done right now. We're in this, it's been 37 minutes, so it's taken me, going to take about 40 minutes for me to thoroughly go through a listing representation agreement from start to finish, not so thorough. So additional notices, you can touch on A, which is you cannot discriminate against race, color, religion, all that good stuff. You can touch on if they are a foreign person, they still have to file taxes. The title company will send that information to the IRS. And then consult an attorney is always important if they don't understand what they're signing. Good stuff. Notices, important things, why they've hired you, for you to protect them. And then last but not least is that last page. Is all about you building a rapport with them, you connecting with them, you're assuring them that you're going to do everything to get their home sold and to look out for their best interest in this sale of their home. I hope that this was a value for you. I have an entire playlist that I've been putting together with all of the Texas contracts, paragraph by paragraph, for you to be equipped. Hope to see you soon.